Why is Switzerland doing so well?
A very good question. Why is Switzerland so rich? Well, less than 200 years ago, Switzerland was a relatively poor country. More people left than wanted to live there. No natural resources, just mountains and pastures. The country's most important export good was mercenaries serving in foreign armies. To this day, Vatican security consists of the so-called Swiss Guard, which is the oldest military formation in the world. Switzerland, during the great financial crisis of 2007 to 2009, not only did not lose, but even gained in terms of the wealth of its people. Looking at the economy produced by the Swiss over time, this one has grown by as much as 51 times since 1960, recording one of the highest increases in human history. Today, it is the fourth richest country in the world. But this was not always the case, especially talking about the period between 1800 and 1900. Even as urban residents began to benefit from the economy transforming global industrialization, those living in the countryside or alpine regions suffered from widespread hunger, leading many to seek their fortunes abroad, mainly in South and North America. Today, looking at Switzerland's population, it is quite clear that the Swiss not only do not want to leave their country, but above all, are a willing destination for immigration. Switzerland has virtually no raw materials, especially the energy ones on which the Arab states have built their wealth. In addition, it is one of the highest countries in the world where the average height above sea level is 1,350 meters. There is not even one country in the world that, having such a complicated geography, has achieved so much. The Swiss are judged to have gotten rich from the gold that Nazi Germany stole from the Jews during World War II, or from hiding the wealth of the richest.
We have documents confirming that the Swiss were actively and directly involved in shipping gold for Nazis. The documents also show that these shipments were carried out by trucks that had the insignias of Switzerland stamped on them. In other words, they actually used Swiss transport. That the gold bars were identified clearly as coming from Germany.
Every single coin which belongs to the Jews should go back to the individual Jews and to the Jewish people.
The fact is that this was not the main reason why this country is so wealthy today. So in today's material, we will examine how the Swiss really came to such great wealth, take a look at the controversies surrounding this wealth, and why they will continue to get rich, having a huge impact on global geopolitics. I invite you to watch today's report. Switzerland was recognized as a perpetually neutral country as early as the Congress of Vienna in 1815. It also officially maintained neutrality during World War II. What did this mean? No foreign troops could be stationed in the country, nor could the country officially support either side. Nevertheless, as late as 1870, Switzerland had a GDP per capita similar to Uruguay, but by 1913, with $4,266 per capita, the Helvets were among the world's richest nations, alongside Britain and the US, among others. Switzerland was a rich country even before the outbreak of World War I. Most importantly, all the way from a poor country to a rich one, Switzerland had no patent law. It was only in 1888 that it introduced only the possibility of patenting inventions that could be represented by mechanical models. Patents were deliberately not introduced for chemical and pharmaceutical technologies because the Swiss at the time were copying them en masse from Germany, which was the world leader in them. The immediate reason for the introduction of the patent law in 1907 was, moreover, the threat of trade sanctions precisely from Germany. In short, Switzerland's initial wealth was built on the same things on which the economies of countries such as China and Germany became largely rich in the 21st century. But why Germany? Well, their products are often confusingly similar to those of other brands, but they are cheaper at the same time. The little chain has had dozens of lawsuits over copying packaging and even products. Many of these disputes it has lost. China, on the other hand, has now built almost the world's largest economy on copying foreign technology. Significantly, the Swiss have introduced the option to claim rights to chemical technologies but not to patent chemicals. They legalize such an option only. Note: in 1978. In this context, it is hardly surprising that Novartis International, the world's second-largest pharmaceutical company, comes from such a small country. Switzerland's geography, although complicated in terms of terrain, gave the country a significant advantage. If you look at the map, you will notice that to the south and partly to the east, the country is surrounded by the highest mountains in Europe, the Alps. To the west, the Jura Range. There are some isolated peaks to the north as well, but Lake Constance is the key to security here. During World War II, the Swiss, despite their neutrality, had no guarantee that they would not be attacked by Hitler's Germany, which is why as early as the 1930s, there was a process of creating bunkers on the borders. The concept of the plan was called the so-called National Redoubt. Switzerland is known for its numerous basins that the enemy would have to cross in order to capture the country. They were one big fortification. So any attempt to attack Switzerland capable of mobilizing 650,000 people in 48 hours would involve gigantic losses that neither the Germans nor any other country could afford, which is why Switzerland has not participated in any war for over 200 years. The lack of war damage meant that as early as the 1960s, the country began a process of instant wealth, but this one had its foundations much earlier. Today, authorities estimate that 22% of Switzerland's population was born abroad. That's the highest percentage in the world, almost double that of the US. And back in 1860, only 5% of Swiss were expatriates. By 1910, the percentage was already 15%. Why is this so significant? Well, there were plenty of entrepreneurs among the emigrants. For example, Henri Nestle, founder of the famous Nestle food company, was German. Entrepreneurs migrated entire families to Switzerland because of its affordable tax laws, which involved low rates. Significantly, not so far back as 1875, the average duty on industrial products was only 6% in Switzerland, while in the US, it reached 50%. The Swiss gave their entrepreneurs access to free technology, but did not allow them to rest on their laurels. The threat of importing cheaper and better products from abroad mobilized manufacturers to constantly improve quality and lower prices. This model also continued during the Cold War era, and to this day, Switzerland is one of the best countries for business. This is the model showing what Switzerland produces and exports in the main. 35% is medical products, that is, among other things, medicines, vaccines, or other goods used for medical treatment, including even blood. Precious metals, which are produced and secured by Swiss banks, are responsible for about 25%. The remaining 40% includes collectibles industry, cultural goods like paintings, and other goods you see on the screen. As for the largest Swiss corporations, this is the distribution of capital that participates in them. 39% belongs to the Swiss, 33% to North America, 24% to Europe, and only 4% is the rest of the world. However, Switzerland is also not a pure business, of which the most prominent example is the previously mentioned Nestle. Among the biggest sins of this corporation are slave labor of children, unethical extraction of water, limiting its availability in third world countries, or the decision to stay in Russia despite the war in Ukraine. Swiss wealth, in addition to great tax solutions, also has some dark sides. We're talking specifically about the so-called Swiss Banking Act of 1934, whose role was to protect people and banks in terms of banking secrecy. Customer data was supposed to be secret. Thus, when Hitler announced that he was relinquishing foreign claims from World War I in 1933, it was his plan to loot Europe, which began in 1938 with a specially prepared Kunstschutz unit. The gold taken from Jews in European countries, including Poland, which ended up in Switzerland, is estimated at about 100 tons, with only 4 tons later returned. That is, 96 tons of gold seized by Hitler remained in Switzerland. At current prices, a ton of gold costs $67 million. That is, today it would be more than $6.5 billion. Quite a lot. And while gold and customer protection played a significant role in making Switzerland rich, they were only one component of why the country is almost the richest in the world today. Switzerland was almost immune to crises, so much so that it upset the US administration during the 2007 to 2009 crisis. Obama named Switzerland's UBS as one of the banks that helped tax cheats and helped introduce a bill in the Senate to crack down on tax havens. Ultimately, the Swiss made some concessions in the context of account privacy, which began cooperation with the FBI. This caused a temporary capital outflow that came down with the crisis, but the decline was less than the recent rise. Later, another upward rally began, which is virtually unstoppable. But why is Switzerland's economy so strong? According to the 2019 Global Wealth Report, the median wealth of the average Swiss was estimated at $227,000. This compares to $94,000 in Austria and $35,000 in Germany. The European Union grew out of the European Coal and Steel Community, established on the basis of the Treaty of Paris, signed in 1951, which consisted of Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg to West Germany, France, and Italy. Switzerland found itself centrally in the middle of this creation, remaining a neutral country.
Earlier in 1951, 6 countries had created the European Coal and Steel Community to boost economic revival and help ensure lasting peace by creating a common market for these essential wartime commodities. Vigorously promoted by the French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman, the ECSC Treaty was signed in Paris by France, West Germany, Luxembourg, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Italy.
L'Europe ne se fera pas d'un coup, ni dans une construction d'ensemble. Elle se fera par des réalisations concrètes, créant d'abord une solidarité de fait.
Being in such a position, Switzerland was in the middle of the so-called blue banana of abundance. With the trade of Western Europe centered on north-south contacts, the Swiss became the transportation hub and logistical heart of this trade route. On top of that, if you look at global supply chains, the country also lies along the Silk Road, which made local opportunities all the more potent. Significantly lower taxes compared to the rest of Europe further bolstered Switzerland's competitiveness on growing corporations, and local businesses that had opportunities to draw know-how from other companies quickly grew into more business giants. What you see is a map of European CIT, or corporate taxes. In theory, Swiss taxes are progressive and on average reach a maximum of 24.6%. However, the country has different taxes depending on the region. There are cantons where the tax is as low as 11.2% for Zug, 12.3% for Nidwalden, or 12.5% for Schwyz. Although taxes can be negotiated and there are a number of exemptions making Switzerland somewhat of a tax haven, decentralization is an additional strength of this country. Switzerland's strength is its strong and unique local government. The country consists of 26 cantons, which are, as it were, in competition with each other. Each canton wants to attract as many quality jobs as possible, so local government officials try to compete with each other for low taxes and efficient budget spending. Residents can decide the fate of their own municipality in local referendums, which makes it easier not only to change taxes, but also laws. Such decentralized democracy allows laws to be tailored to the needs of local communities, since laws imposed top-down from the richest regions of the country are often disastrous for the weaker ones. A prime example of this is Poland, whose tax rates are uniform for every region, limiting development and investment in the eastern part of the country. On top of this, Switzerland is not afraid of immigrants, but is bringing them in droves. 1 in 4 Swiss residents is an immigrant, but the country doesn't pull just anyone. There are a number of regulations in place to attract the most ambitious and willing people and students.
Switzerland admits more asylum seekers on a provisional basis than most other European nations. The majority are only given a temporary right to stay and do not qualify for refugee status. People only get asylum in Switzerland if they can prove they are refugees as defined by the Swiss Asylum Act. An asylum application can be made at the Swiss border or while living in Switzerland. People cannot apply for asylum from outside the country. Applications from high-risk countries are sent to the Federal Intelligence Service to prevent terrorists from entering Switzerland under the guise of asylum seekers.
Switzerland has some of the best medical services in the world, some of the best schools, and ranks at the top in almost every quality ranking. In terms of HDI, or quality of life for its residents, Switzerland is ahead of all countries in the world and holds the role of world leader. All this without raw materials, in difficult mountainous terrain requiring billions of dollars of investment in infrastructure, and with a population of just under 10 million. This makes such a small country the world's 20th largest economy, with influence on global geopolitics. It is home to the headquarters of such international organizations as the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the International Labor Organization, the World Trade Organization, the International Red Cross and Red Crescent Movement, and CERN, and many other organizations. Before the war in Ukraine, it was in Geneva that the US and Russia held a meeting to avoid conflict. In short, the wealth of the Swiss is mainly due to their approach to entrepreneurship and their fight against populism and unjustified handouts. Of course, some unfair practices have helped the country grow even more, but regardless, Switzerland's power has been built on hard work and science, which have translated into the financial importance of this beautiful country. I am curious about your opinions on Switzerland. For my part, that's it for today. Stay tuned. Cheers.